I'm John Seacott, executive editor of the Brewer Magazine, and welcome to another edition of the Brewer Magazine podcast. Happy Labor Day weekend. Just wrapping up his here as we're getting into it. I'm cleaning up my garage after we had our Sunday afternoon festivities, and I'm drinking water today because I wasn't drinking water yesterday. So every once in a while, I want to go back because the podcast just started this year, but I've been doing interviews either on the phone or in person for over 10 years now with Brewer Magazine. There's a lot of great interviews that just have never gotten a chance to be a podcast. So instead, I'm going back in the archives and finding stuff that I found that still could be relevant to if you're listening to it now compared to even when it first happened. So July of last year, I met up with Julian Arena, and of Outsider Brewing outside of Asheville, North Carolina. And they have a really unique system. I'll throw some photos in here and a link to the last pint that we ran in September of October of last year, where he talked about they brew in glass. They brew in an entire glass system, ferment and everything. Oh, really interesting. They're always looking to collaborate. He was really interested in talking about that, and we wanted to share it with you. So here's the, you've read the story probably in the last pint, and there's been a few articles that we've run, but I wanted to kind of share the whole interview with you as a podcast today.
Honestly, we've been talking a lot about this and how to define ourselves and just like terms, education, and like, are we educating people or are we just selling them? I guess the thinking behind it was just, I was in the industry for a long time. I was in a production brewing position for a long time. And my partner was in sales. They're both looking around and saying, like, what do people not get about this industry? Because brewers are so passionate and so dedicated to this. And the average consumer, they're basically absorbing about 20% of what brewers are here for, And the big question, I guess, is how do we build a culture that makes brewers proud, get up out of bed in the morning because they know that what they're doing is being received by the people who are consuming what they're making. And that was a puzzle for sure because we didn't know exactly how we wanted to do that. And I've always been somewhat of a beer evangelist. And all throughout college, I was home brewing and I was changing people's minds about beer. And that was the genesis of this concept that I figured out. More than I love seeing my beer on the shelf at the grocery store, I love showing people what beer can be and how much I love it. Hopefully some of that love will pass on to them. And making a brewery that its first mission is to share that love and not to make as much beer as possible or not to get into as many, distro positions as possible. It's literally just how small can we go, how intimate can we make it, and we knew that making this system this way was the best way to do that.
Absolutely. And being in an area like Asheville helps too, because you are able to be in that area that has some beer knowledge, has people, you probably can bring in more people that are one step beyond casual, maybe more curious, more into the art and the science of the beer. Do you see that with the people that are coming in, or do you think that you're still on that ground level of people just walking in and not understanding the whole process?
It's a mixed bag, honestly. I think just because you live in Asheville doesn't mean you know anything about beer, or about brewing. And I do think in this town, there is absolutely this, at least nowadays, it's like, I like what I like culture, and like a very comfort zone kind of thing. And I think, in some ways, you're in a town where the culture is very craft-centric in other things, like you can go to a pottery studio, you can go to a glass blowing studio, you can go to a painting studio, all these other kinds of crafts but beer is not considered one of them.
Gotcha.
So I guess it would seem like a natural, of course, do this in Asheville because everyone's going to be receptive to it. But I think people are both primed to expect craftiness, but they're also trained in some ways by the market to see brewing as just this like nebulous industrial process. So it's making that connection is a huge opportunity for us here, but it is not intuitive, I would say, which is surprising.
Yeah. Were you surprised by that then?
Definitely.
Yeah. And because how long has the process been from, because obviously it takes, you start a business plan and you plan to open and then you actually open. Like what kind of time frame were you guys on with that in getting open?
What's it? Double your timeline, quadruple your budget.
Right.
Yeah. So we started the process in early 21, and then we made it, mid 21. We signed the lease. So really, exactly 2 years ago, we started, working on getting building permits, and that was a whole debacle, to be honest. That was the most annoying part. Was getting our building permits. It wasn't even construction. And then, construction took about 5 or so months. We really sprinted through construction though. Did a lot of the upgrades ourselves. And then, we were open by August of 22. So we've been open for about 10, 11 months. So, this glass brewing system concept though I've been working on since 2017 actually was when I built the first one. Yeah. Yep. But it was a very small thing, and it was just a concept, really. But I never let go of it.
Yeah. And do you find now the brewing is done in glass, but is the fermenting still? Do you still use stainless steel then?
No. So we do. Yeah. So what we have is this brew house, right in the center, and then on either side of it are these rooms that kind of like contain the stage where the brew house is. Mm-hmm. And that is where we do these horizontal glass tubes that are basically giant plate glasses, and there are fermenters. So you can kind of see what beer is on deck. We have little screens there that display what beer is in tank, and then you can come in, check it out, read what ingredients are in it. But yeah, you can see active. We do all of our primary fermentation in these glass tubes, and then we rack off into single jacketed stainless conicals that are just like 2-barrel little things. And I lift them up with a pallet jack. And when they're ready to crash, I just wheel them right into our big walk-in, and we serve right out of the stainless tank.
Nice.
So
you took a little bit of that home brewing, like I just brewed 3 batches this weekend as a home brewer, and 2 of them are in, glass carboys. You just are doing kind of that type of thing. I mean, you're seeing it. You can watch your fermentation. I think that's something that a lot of people probably don't know that happens on that level. And even like you said, you're able to translate it into a professional system.
Well, what is, it's hard to it's hard to overstate how little the average person understands about Indian.
Yeah.
And it's just, in some ways, in some contexts, it can be very frustrating. But then in this context, it's a huge, wide open, like whole new universe, essentially, of what service we can provide to the world. Mm-hmm. Because not only do people not understand what fermentation is or does, they don't know what it looks like. And it makes sense in any other context. You'd say, let me just show you, And that, you can go on any beer floor and they say, this is a, 150 barrel tank. Like, can the average person tell the difference between 150 and 1,500 barrels?
Yeah.
I don't think they do. I mean, it's just, there's scale that humans the average person doesn't understand. Mm-hmm. And shrinking it down, putting it right in front of them and be like, hey, what's fermentation? Well, what are you doing right now? You got metabolism. You breathe out CO2. And if you didn't eat you'd get lighter and lighter and lighter until you waste it away. Well, guess what's happening to the beer? It's breathing. It's metabolizing sugar just like we do and getting lighter and lighter and lighter. And that makes sense. You see the bubbles and say, oh, it's just breathing, like everything else. And we're not that different than those tiny yeasts. And, just in that 30-second exchange, someone could have their mind completely blown by fermentation. So this is a miracle that's happening. You've just never seen. You've never thought about it. You take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get a chance to consciously consume something that you are excited about because someone took the time to show you. And it's so simple, but it works so well.
Have you seen that happen to you, in between, and how many people are doing this, like, on your brew days? Like you said, you have someone else able to brew with you, so it's not just you brewing, but, like, being able to impart that excitement and being able to educate while you're brewing. I thought that was interesting. And, like, you're brewing out in the open. People are seeing this. How is that different than what maybe other commercial breweries are doing, where sometimes, yes, they see it, but it's behind glass and all that kind of stuff. Like, why?
Yeah. So it's a question of, as a business, as a brewery business, how do we add value to people's lives? I really want to answer that question. And most brewers think that their beer tastes really good, so that's why they add value to people's lives, because I make the best check sellers or whatever. And in reality, I don't think the success of craft beer has necessarily been value added because of the outstanding check pillness of your check pills. It is more so this culture of rebelliousness and of independence, artisanship that is contagious and exciting, and people want to be a part of it. And you can give them, beer that tastes good, but at the core of it, they want to feel like this is something dynamic and happening in front of us. And so our entire company culture is based around it. So from the bartender to the brewer, on the same day, you're in the same space. The bartender is there not to serve you beer, but to give you this brewery experience. Beer is one of the tools that we use to give you that brewery experience, because he can or she can demonstrate the nuances of the brewing process with the beer we have. And that's a tool for building this exceptional experience. At the same time, the brewing process itself is a tool to build a relationship with the customer, one-on-one. Say, hey, like, I'm essentially your storyteller today. I'm going to tell you the story of this beer. And I have all the tools to do this. This is my translation tool. So the brewer is not just making beer. They're adding a ton of value to the customer with the process itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And my argument is that that's the best way to do it. It's not just like, all right, well, my IPA is going to go to battle against 50 other IPAs in town,
Yeah. Well, and it turns into a very unique experience that, I know obviously people love having people come in to buy beer because the margin's better, but you're caring about the consumer as well and being able to come away with it, and like you said, an experience versus a drinking experience.
Right. Because that can be, anyone can sell you beer over the counter. Anyone can spend a bunch of money and make a really pretty tacker. But if Tony's up on the brew deck and he's brewing a beer he's passionate about and he wants to tell you about it, there's no replacement. It is just a one-of-a-kind thing because it's about people. And I think that is an untapped resource in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
It is all about relationships. And I do think that the most successful breweries understand. And I think we just took that concept and took it to the extreme and made it hyper-focused on the staffing experience. But, what is Sierra Nevada trying to do? Have you been down to their Mills River location here?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's exactly a perfect example. You feel like you're part of this huge story of this just humble beginnings, badass, make it work kind of thing that grew into this giant movement, and it's encapsulated in a place and an experience. And we just wanted to do that, shrink it down, and make it as intimate as possible.
How does a brew day differ, do you think, whether it's in process or in timing? Is there any changes that you've noticed while you've been brewing on this system compared to, let's say, and what size is it? Like, what are you brewing batch-wise?
So it's just a one-barrel system. We have these 2-barrel horizontal fermenters, and then we can actually, we call it stitching, where you connect them and make, it's sort of modular. So we can do 2-barrel batches, we can do 3-barrel batches, 4-barrel batches, all with the same culture. So it's really nice and flexible. And then you've got, the 3-vessel 1-barrel system, essentially. And the importance to me of having these vessels be separated is, better workflow. I'm a firm believer in having specific vessels for specific functions. Mm-hmm. And then you're able to show the process with the vessel. So, we are able to do 2 turns in a day if we wanted to. And I designed it with users, friendliness in mind, because at the end of the day, I am the brewer. And I wanted to brew on a system that I love. On top of that, it's transparent, so I can do the other thing that I love, which is showing people about beer. So there's a lot of control. There is a lot of kind of set it and forget it kind of situation, especially with the mash rest. So during the mash rest is my favorite part of the day, because I love malt. I love grain. I want to tell people that, nothing makes me happier than showing someone that grain is to beer as grapes are to wine. Yep. Just elevating this product into something more than just, Budweiser ads and into something that is truly an agricultural product. And the mash rest is the perfect opportunity to do that, because I can get down on the floor and get right next to the customer and tell them exactly what's happening in the mash shop. And that's huge.
Yeah, that is very cool. How many batches have you been able to do on it so far then? How many times a brew day a week and stuff over this last year that you guys have had?
Oh, it's been fits and starts for us. It's been an adventure because we had to get all the tanks full at the beginning, and then we had to, everything kicked at the same time because we do the serving tank. Then we had to fill everything back up, and it was, yeah. But now we've reached a good, steady kind of like every other week kind of situation.
Cool.
But we're doing wild beers, we're doing standard fermentations, we're doing, wild sours, saison. We got a lot of different culture stuff going, so we can kind of stagger it based on the, whether it's a standard fermentation or whether it's a wild fermentation.
Gotcha. Very cool.
And we're about, I think we're on batch 50, 53 now.
Well, yeah, kind of like what I asked, but did you guys had to change processes? Are you seeing things that, to, like you said, make it a better brew day for you, because you want it to be as enjoyable as possible as well?
Yes. Well, we invented, designed, tested, and brewed on the system opening for business, all within about a year.
Yeah.
So inevitably, when you try something new for the first time, there's going to be kinks. There's going to be crazy obstacles to overcome. Designing this all yourself, you're going to say, Jesus, why did I ever think that was a good idea? One thing here that I totally just, I don't want to say I winged it, but I wanted to mill my own grain. I think it's really important for the experience to show show people what milling is, and the fact that you're cracking this grain, it really does kind of help if you get into the nitty gritty, talking about soluble protein and, you know, the way that the beer looks when it goes through the system. With this process that we do, it's very clear when there's a lot of protein in the wort, and the hot breaks, and you can see all the protein in the petals. So people want to see what that is. And I think having the crack like that, where you can show that you got to be gentle to the grain, that you need to crack it real hard and sharp. And it's a cool experience if you're doing it like this. So I didn't want to buy pre-milled grain. So I have this set up to mill in line. So we have like a hopper. It funnels down into a mill, and then it falls directly into a hydrate, and then it falls into the mash. So it is a very strange, unique thing. But just working out the kinks on how to get that thing to run right was just the most difficult, arduous, and I was like, you know what, I can just buy pre-milled grain. I'm just going to scrap the whole damn thing. And then, we decided against it, stuck our heads in the books and figured out how to make this work. And now it works like a charm, and I'm very, very glad we stuck with it. But there was a while there where I was like, oh my god, no one's going to want to be here for the milling because it's so fucking loud and messy and obnoxious.
Sure.
But that was definitely the first thing to redesign.
Yeah. So obviously a lot of people brew in the morning, but you want people there. So are you brewing later in the morning, in the afternoon? How's your work day then work?
So we only brew when we're open. So every batch, we are open for business, full transparency. So we start brewing when we open. So there's always, the preliminary, getting your hot liquor, cold liquor, measuring out your grain and all that stuff. But really, we're mashing in by 1:45, and then we're open at 2.
Nice.
And that is our work day. But we're usually packed up by, depending on what we're knocking out. If we're knocking out a standard ale at like 68 degrees, we'll do like a 6.5-hour day. Nothing too crazy, but basically the entire duration of being open, you can walk in, say hi to your brewer, shake their hand, have a beer, hang out, and just chill and brew with us.
Very cool. It just reminds me of like I was brewing this weekend, and I just send it out to my homebrew club. Like, whoever wants to come by, and just come hang out, watch. That sounds like it sounds like that mentality where it's just very it's communal. Like it's a job, but at the same time you're getting a chance to communicate.
That's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to work in a factory. I mean, maybe some people do. I did. I know a lot of people who do, and they don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
What we love is what beer does for us, our community. I do believe that is what makes people fall in love with this process and this craft. And what makes people fall out of love with it is, just being a cog in the wheel in a big factory.
Mm-hmm.
And we do need those places. We need those big factories. I'm not saying we don't, not everyone can be, one barrel system, but at the same time, there should be an alternative. There should be a different path, and that's what we're trying to provide here. And I want to be a place where that experience, that joy, that homebrewers feel, and the people who are like, you know what? I just brewed a beer for the first time, and I think I love it. And I want to give that to everyone. I want anyone to come in here and feel like I caught the bug. I love this, and I want to build a business around it. That's my goal, and that's what we did. And it's going great, and I really do think that feeling that you get hanging out with your friends and making beer and enjoying beer together is a profound thing, and it's been around for a very long time. And a lot of other cultures have this, and we just don't really have it in America very much.
Mm-hmm.
In spite of all the prolific craft breweries, it's going to take some retraining to get the average person on board with this. But once they are here and they are seeing it and they are experiencing it, it clicks. And, craft beer doesn't have to be this obscure subculture anymore. It can be an integral part of our culture, just like it is in Germany and other countries.
The one thing, just more of the science behind it, with the glass for fermenting. Are you obviously you don't want light struck, so did you situate it in the area of the brewery where you're not getting direct sunlight on it, you're able to, and stuff like that? Take me through that part of the process. That's intriguing.
Yeah, so that was a huge puzzle, obviously. So what's it going to take to orient this room so they never receive direct sunlight with a bit of a chance? And being a startup, we have a limited budget, so our space choices are limited. And we found a cool space, and you know what? It ends up being the perfect orientation for what we're trying to do. So the walls of the room that these fermentations are in are set perpendicular to the path of the sun outside the window, so they never receive direct light. And then every light bulb in the room itself is a light amber light bulb, which doesn't emit the wavelengths that cause light show.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, your eyes adjust when you're in the room, but you don't really see it until you walk outside. Just how yellow the light is in here. It's kind of like being in a big amber bottle. So that was very something to consider. We did a lot of research on it. And then another fun fact that most people don't know, for the record, before you get a bunch of DMs or angry emails. The light struck compound doesn't form in brew house. It is only in the presence of a bunch of riboflavin, apparently. This is according to the research. And that really is mostly in the fermentation side. So it really only becomes sensitive to the light once its yeast has become active.
Yeah.
And so having the system out front and center is no problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the fermentations and obviously post-packaging that you need to be worried about for tax.
Right. Well, that's neat. Yeah. I'm glad. It's good to see. You obviously put a lot of thought and effort into this. Like you said, I mean, this is a 5-6 year project coming to fruition here in this first year. So I think it's awesome that things are going well for you, and that you'll get some attention for this, and hopefully we can, sharing it with the beer community, like something through our publication. My goal is to always get someone to call you up instead of call me. You know what I mean? Like, I want them to be like, oh, this is cool. I want to talk to these guys about this.
So let's put the call out, man. If there is a serious opportunity here for a brewer or a brewery to come and do a collaboration in this space and capture like a snapshot of brewing culture on a brew day. And it means a lot to us to do collaborations with breweries that put the customer first, put the craft first, and no matter where they are. So if there's anyone that this resonates with anywhere in the country or wherever that feels as though chance to brew up here with us and share that love publicly, they're absolutely welcome to reach out to us. We can line up something.
Cool. Well, great talking to you, and hopefully we'll be in contact soon.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, John.
Don't forget, you can always check on brewermag.com. You can also see us on YouTube and listen to us on Spotify. And don't forget daily updates on Facebook, Instagram, and X. I'm Executive Editor John Seacott for brewermagazine.com.